with David Ian and Kate Dale.
The show that plumbs the depths of mediocrity, celebrates the ordinary, and enjoys the everyday.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mediocre, the podcast. I'm Kate Dale.
And I am David Ian.
So, David, tell me about your week, what you've been up to.
I have rediscovered Celine Dion this week.
I can't believe you lost her in the first place. I'm judging you for that. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't lose her, but you know how sometimes you end up listening to other people, like Taylor Swift's new album, all of that. And then I randomly had her, like she played on my non-specific sound system.
Right.
Alexa. And and I was like, oh, and then I rediscovered her and I fell down this Celine Dion hole about 4 days ago and I haven't quite emerged out the other side yet, which includes for me a Celine Dion hole.
Yes, I'm not,
Ooh.
yeah.
Includes going and watching videos of her being insane on YouTube.
There's quite a lot of them.
Because she is amusingly bonkers.
She is. I still have tickets to see her for her show that was supposed to be...
Oh my God, it's been postponed like 4 times
April
now.
2020, for obvious reasons, didn't happen. And then there's been various other things. I think it's just been postponed again.
Yeah, it has.
I'm never seeing her or getting that money back.
Have you seen her before?
No.
She is amazing live. I saw her in Manchester and she had, you know when you go to the airport, they have those like travelators.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had those on, it was a stage in the middle and she had those on all 4 corners around, like on the edge. And she'd have these dancers and they'd like dance up and they'd get onto the travelator and then they'd pose and they would just be like scooted around the edge of the stage. It's the most epic thing I have ever seen. And I may or may not have spent large proportions of my life since recreating that at home.
Wondered why you had 4 travelators in your flat.
No, it's sadder
absurd.
than that. I just shuffle along. Anyway, so this week we've got a guest.
We do.
So actor, stand-up comedian, activist, writer, Dian Cathal is with us. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, hello.
And I said it correct, right?
You did.
Amazing. So I first saw Dian in his one-man show at Above the Stag.
Mm-hmm. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. At the appropriately named Dead Named, which was an amazing show that I spoke to you about afterwards and was like, we have to book this person, and then booked you for Queer Comedy Club. So tell us a little bit about that first, how that came about, because that was really that was written there like in a week.
2 weeks. So I was in New York for the pandemic and I was coming back and sort of wondering, what am I doing with my career? Because my industry doesn't exist anymore. So this was, I think, like April, May 2021. So we were starting to come out, and Above the Stag had the idea for the contact season, which is give performers / theater companies 2 weeks, all the space, all the resources they need, and then they have a week-long run at no cost to them.
Amazing.
Which was
Great
crazy.
idea.
Yeah.
So I got this off a Facebook post where a friend of mine was doing another show that sadly got canceled because they got COVID. But they were like, they're looking for one more act. If you got a show.
So you were the replacement.
I was a replacement.
Wow.
No, not for them, but somebody else had dropped out just before, and they were like, they need one more in the season. So I just wrote an email saying all the things I did, and then also, if you have a coffin, I have a show.
So you already had the concept for the show?
Yes. Well, I because I had, so basically the conceit of the show, it's called Dead Named, because dead name is a word in the trans community to refer to your legal name / birth name / the name your parents gave you. And I've always found that word not the most helpful or maybe healthy, because maybe we shouldn't use suicidal language in the very conceit of our existence. But that's a whole show. But basically, it went with the joke of, everyone keeps saying I'm dead as a trans person. Why haven't I had a funeral? So it's a trans person throwing their own funeral and then coming sort of around to the idea of I'm not actually dead. No one died. But going through that, mixing in Irish myths, relating to the character's grandmother, and then also talking about that character's mother specifically. So I spent the first 2 days of the project looking up really transphobic parents, and then basically taking the most vile things they said about their child and making it into a long monologue, including a woman who said she wished her child was really dead because it would be easier for her. than to have a trans child. So it's a comedy show. I think it was funny.
It is funny. It is funny. It is a comedy show. It's so moving, but yet really funny as well. It's really good. It's really, really good. If you ever get the chance to see it, you should.
Can I ask a question? So when you're writing and when you're having to read those things and process them, does it hit, even if it's not, how do you stop it? How do you keep yourself up, I think, and positive? Or
So I've actually spent basically since the pandemic, which I'm sure wasn't a healthy decision that I made, working on a secret project about transphobia and homophobia, to where I've kind of infiltrated some of their most abhorrent groups. So every day I read stuff like that. I'm starting to feel the effects of it now. Like it's starting to manifest. But I think just being a queer person, there is an armor that you've built up from childhood against those things. And I was lucky enough, so I was staying in London for the 2-week process. And I mean, I would just call friends that day and go, I need to go to dinner with some friends. I need friendship. I need to be around people. My family's in New York, but I'd be calling my parents and genuinely saying, thank you for loving me.
Yeah.
Because part of the show, because I can't really make a show about my trans experience necessarily because it was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody wants a queer show where your parents love you.
Yeah, there has to be some tragedy.
Yeah, like I think I say in the show, they want tears, they want drama. Because the monologue with the mother comes in when I talk about when you come out. There's 2 things people ask: when did you know? / how did you know? And what did your parents say?
Yeah.
And they never want. Oh, they were cool with it.
They're disappointed when they get that.
Yeah,
right?
and it's like there's actually a phenomenon now where we have queer kids coming out in our world, which is still, we have a lot of problems, but it is much better than when we were young. And there's this weird phenomenon of they're upset when their parents are cool with it.
Wow.
Because it's been built up in society.
Yeah, they're expecting it to be this big dramatic
thing. They've been so stressed about it. And they're like, do you watch coming out videos on YouTube?
I used to.
It breaks me.
Not anymore.
But that moment when the parent goes, what's wrong? And they just start crying and you feel your own heart break.
It's painful, yeah.
Oh, and you're like, no, it's okay, honey. No. But yes, there are kids who are just very, because they're young and don't necessarily know how to moderate their emotions properly, but they've built it up to so much. But
also they think that that coming out is the destination. Yeah. As opposed to really just the beginning of a journey. Yeah. And when you get older, bless you for thinking we're the same age. When you get older, you realize that that was just the first step. Yeah. And that there's a lot of other stuff. And it's great when that first step is supported and positive. And unfortunately it isn't for everybody. But you say, the stories that people are more interested in seeing, I guess, are ones that have joy. But that goes for all things, doesn't it? Yeah. Nobody just wants to watch just a happy show. There's got to be something in there.
So it was weird writing Dead Named because my relationship with my birth name is different to somebody whose parents used it as a weapon against them and tainted their name. Yeah. And it makes me really angry that people have done that.
But of course, there is a reminder that everybody's on a different journey. Yeah. And so we've spoken about this before on the pod, haven't we? Where everybody's own individual experience with their sexuality and their existence in the world and how they've moved through the world influences how they feel about different terms and how it's okay to interact with them and things like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, obviously, we are a community and the community is within that community, but the idea that therefore there's a monolithic experience within that is so not true, and it gets quite difficult and dangerous, I think, when that is sort of presented, or when people are seen as, oh, well, you're speaking on behalf of, we can only ever speak on behalf of ourselves.
Well, I mean, as a cis white gay male, I speak for the whole LGBT community, as we know. And my happiness is the measure that we use for how everybody else is getting on. So,
if you're fine, we're cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I can be of service to you all. Anyway, I hope that came across as ironic.
So you've just watched the cancellation of David Ian. Not before time.
No, you'll be fine.
Yeah, good.
So that's the first question.
Go on then.
So tell us about the word mediocre and what it means to you.
I think mediocre does get a bad rap. And I think it's just meh. You know what I mean? It's not the worst thing we've ever seen. And I think when it comes to things that are mediocre, they're not so bad, they're good again. Most of the time. I think there's, just talk about like queer art, because like most minorities, when we make art, we have to be exceptional. We're not allowed to be mediocre.
Yeah.
Because like if you make a queer film and it flops, it's like, well, there's no reason to make another one.
I went to see Bros just at the weekend, and a couple of people were like, well, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, oh, I'm going to see Bros. And they were like, oh, I've heard terrible things. And I was like, well, first of all, I've also heard terrible things, which, by the way, I do not think apply, because I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. I loved every second of it. I cried. I genuinely thought it was moving and funny. But I was like, I feel like it's really important for me to go and see this at the cinema. Yeah. Because I want to spend money so that gets registered rather than just watching it when it comes out on TV, which I will do. Yeah. But like when Netflix did the Christmas movie,
I love that.
Whatever that was, with Jennifer Coolidge last year, I was like, I'm watching this even if I didn't want to, because the number needs to be registered. Yeah. Because like you say, but also because we wait so long, because there's such limited representation, we're then so quick to criticize it because it doesn't represent exactly us, as opposed to being like, well, this is one experience within our community and let's lift that up. Have you seen?
Yeah.
Bros?
Oh yeah.
And you liked it?
I did. I think it had a lot of pressure to, like a lot of commercial queer things, to tread the line of being for the out group. Yeah. So like when it comes to making things, there's the out group and then there's the in group, and you kind of have to choose who you're making it for.
Who you're doing it for.
And sometimes this is to educate people and to normalize our existence, not to necessarily talk about like the chemsex scene and why that's dangerous to our community. Yeah. Like that movie would be much harder to make, to talk about the real issues.
A mainstream studio is not going to be doing that.
Let's get two hot looking white guys who aren't necessarily that effeminate. Yeah. Like Billy's not the machoist man, but he's not
that effeminate.
He's not that effeminate. No. And like, cause even like the concept of he was the effeminate gay going after the bro.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when 100%.
Yeah, I'm like, he's not femme. We could have gone harder on that. But no, I think it was just a really nice, moving thing. And then all the scenes with the advocacy, and you're just like, yeah, I've been in that group. I've been in that room.
Yeah, I could recognize a lot of the stuff in it, and I just recognize it for what it is, which is a mainstream movie made by a mainstream Hollywood studio. Yeah. With an entirely queer cast about a queer story.
And so many queer people work so hard for so many years to get that done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like normal movies take so long and so hard to make. A queer movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm sure when they pitched it, they were like, this is a fucking long shot. We are not, they're not going to let us make this.
The song that features at the end, I thought it was great. I really loved it. I've read some stuff online, quite critical of it. But Love is Not Love, I think it's called. Yeah. It's really, like, I mean, that is an interesting message anyway, isn't it? About, well, love is love. Yeah. Okay. We won't get into that. There's not enough time. But again, it's about polishing us and making us presentable for a heteronormative society, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's sort of like the baby steps.
Yeah.
It's a concession. It was a concession, but I think, they had fun with it.
Yeah.
Queer people got money.
Yeah.
I'm never mad at that.
I agree.
Can we also point out that James Corden wasn't in it?
So that's always because it was an entirely queer cast, so he doesn't get in.
I know.
Thank God.
Yes.
James Corden, I find him so interesting. Talking about mediocre, I find him fucking...
Is he the definition of mediocre for you?
Well, no, I just find it weird, because like obviously everything come out like he's shitty to people who he thinks he has power over. But like when I moved here 7 years ago, there was already such a hatred of him, and nobody could tell me why they hated him.
Oh, you asked me, I think, just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was like, why do people hate him more than genuine sexual criminals in our industry? I was like, no, I was a bit like, what has he done? And it seems like almost retroactively people go, well, I heard he's now shitting at people. I'm like, but you didn't know that.
You didn't know that before,
You didn't know that. You just hate, and maybe you just smelled it on him. I don't know. I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy where everyone hated him, so he became a dick. I don't know. I'd love to interview James Corden and talk about why England hates him.
He has said he became wasn't an overnight success because anyone who's an overnight, or very few people actually are, but he became successful very young, very quickly. Yeah. And he says that he went, I don't think he uses the phrase off the rails, and got too full of himself and too big of himself. And so he was drunk at industry dues and all the rest of it. So I think there's some quite high, I can't remember. You see, yeah, I'm doing it classically. So I think there was that. So I think he then reined himself in again. But I think that some of it is lingering that. So there's bound to be some jealousy, I think.
But even there, his worst crime is being a dick.
Yeah.
I do think there's, one of the things that we're really big on here is we like someone to be successful and then
pull them down,
to be disappointed at how successful they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think becoming big in America takes him onto such a different level, like when he was just on BBC Two over here or whatever, and then all of a sudden.
So do you think it was all jealousy?
Possibly. We really like to tear down successful people.
I wonder as well, and I've got no knowledge about it, because he didn't look like the traditional, because he was big basically, whether that was part of it as well. He didn't conform, so maybe there was some fat shaming, body shaming in there. Thinking about it, that how dare you be successful? You see, now I'm the one who made the shitty comment about him at the beginning, and now I'm feeling guilty about it. But
still don't like him.
I mean, he's still a dick. He's now a dick.
Yeah.
He is a villain now.
Yeah.
But
it's just now it's justified. Yeah. But now we don't know why we felt like that before.
But I'm genuinely curious where he was genuinely isolated by people. I'm sure he was bullied as a child, and I'd like to interview him about his journey and how he became this way. I think he could have been saved.
Yeah.
Is it too late now?
I think it's too late. I think he's been. It's that thing of the kid who gets so bullied that they turn into a bully.
They become the bully.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
yeah, that's right.
And at that point, you're like, I get it, but damn, stop.
Yeah.
You can afford the therapy, I think, so, or whatever it takes.
Yeah, it's like I used to be the kid who would because I was really bullied, I would sit with the people who had no one to sit with. And then it'd take you 2 days to go, oh, this is why no one's sitting with you. That's sad.
Yeah.
That's sadder.
Yeah, I'm that person. What do you love that everyone else thinks is mediocre?
I am here to spread the good word of Diana the musical. Diana, Princess Di, what died? Diana the musical.
The one that is on Netflix.
The one that's on Netflix, because it's not on Broadway anymore. It had 33 performances. He got 33 days. 33.
Did you see it on Broadway?
No, I didn't.
Just on Netflix.
Just on Netflix. Oh my God.
33 is the age Jesus was when he died.
I think it's related.
Yeah.
But yeah, Diana the musical, the story of Princess Diana told through musical is, I think they should have won the Tony for costumes. I'm going to say, I don't, believe that's a hot take. The costume changes were absolute craftsmanship, and they got every.
If anybody's listening to this on a podcast app, he's actually making eye contact with a camera. Yeah, that's how passionate he is.
I need you to understand. They should have won the Tony for that. Nothing else, just that.
So what about the it being a bit distasteful? No, not a problem.
Do you mean to the royal family?
Well, just to
the people currently
to the people's princess, I guess.
The people's, but I don't. She was the people's princess. I think she's of the people. The people now own her. So I'm American.
Yeah.
And what year did she die?
97.
97. So I was 2 years old, and I don't remember her. The first thing I learned about her was that the Queen killed her.
For legal reasons. not true.
But this is my point, is we will never know who Diana truly was. It doesn't exist anymore. The people who knew who she really was are sworn to secrecy because they're within the inner circle of the royal family and they're in the upper classes. So we will never know. But because there's been a renaissance of depictions of her, and because everyone is on her side, especially Americans are we are on Diana's side. Charles was always wrong. It is switched so much in her favor. We will never know who she really was. She could have been an evil bitch. We'll never know. It doesn't matter anymore. She's basically a fictional character at this point, even though she was a real human.
And I think there's probably something about being that sort of a member of the royal family that is fiction even at the time, because it's who you are. You are
It's a presentation.
It's a presentation, isn't it? It's a paper thin, one-dimensional.
Carefully crafted.
Yeah, that there is that is almost deliberately designed not to give any glimpse. You know, that whole thing about the Queen never smiled, because if she smiled at one thing and looked like she was having a good time, then good time, Liz.
That's what they called her.
Yeah, we'll never know. Yeah.
So more specifically then, rather than
Yes.
Diana, so actually I was in Vegas just a couple of weeks ago, and the newest thing on the Vegas Strip is a Diana exhibition.
Jesus
And
Christ.
the English,
We love her so
we
much.
were like, well, this is not in good taste. But the Americans were
Did you go anyway?
obsessed. No, absolutely not.
What was? Well, you won't know. Was it
Were you
actual
offended?
artifacts?
Were you genuinely like
I
offended?
wasn't offended, but I don't understand.
We've had.
Can I answer?
Yeah, sorry. Go on then.
I wasn't offended, but I don't really get the. I don't need to go and look at artifacts that someone has bought or are like curated together. And I'm very aware of the fact that she has family that are still alive and that are also real people and that are affected by things like that. And so some presumably utterly random person making money out of what at this point, as you say, is legend, essentially, but that affects their lives. I think that's a bit distasteful.
Apologies for interrupting, David. I will never do that again. I will do my lines later.
You're a liar.
Yeah. But I mean, Kensington Palace has done Diana exhibitions with all the costumes and things, like costumes, outfits, dresses.
I think that's different because it comes from within. So, for example, when you die, if I had you stuffed and stood in the corner of the room and charged entry, I think that would be okay because I'm connected to you. But if the guy who runs this studio decided to
do it.
Yeah. I don't know how he'd have his stuff. I don't know where this is going.
Do you want me hanging around?
It wouldn't be...
gradually decomposing.
Not in the court. Well, if you were stuffed, you wouldn't be decomposing.
Are you going to spend some decent money on it?
I do have you around gradually decomposing in the corner at the moment. So.
As I've said before, and we'll say again, you're a very lucky man. But anyway, back to Diana the musical.
At the end of the year, when my music, streaming,
Oh, yeah, like your year in summary.
My year in summary for music comes up. 3 out of the top 5 will be from Diana the Musical.
Are you kidding?
No, I can show you right now on my phone. They're absolute bops. A lot of the songs are bad. 5 of them are absolutely excellent. And they actually made like
You're being dead serious about this. I thought this was a joke.
No, I am absolutely there. So there's a song called Snap Click Bop, which is just sort of setting up the foreshadowing of the paparazzi attacking a 19-year-old Diana who's just starting to date Charles, and she's like, "Can you leave me alone?" And they're like, "Oh, you're such a bitch. You won't let us take pictures."
Oh, when she drove a Polo.
And it has the line, "We know that your aim is to be fucking famous, so this is part of it."
Wow.
I'm now slightly distracted by you talking about the Polo and thinking about her life through cars, which ends with a white Fiat, doesn't it? But and you think
where is it?
Is the worst thing that happened to it, wasn't. But more seriously, I think it's interesting. It's the Marilyn Monroeification of her life is what's happening to it. And in the same way that whatever the myth, the legend,
Marilyn Monroeification. What a phrase.
Yeah.
That is epic.
And I'm wondering, are there any men, basically, what this has been done to? There's something about...
James Dean.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So you have to die young, don't you?
Yeah, it was the 27 Club.
Yeah.
What about JFK?
Yeah, well, I think that's also related to Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because, we know he's a cheat. We know JFK cheated on Jackie. Like, he was kind of a scumbag. Like we love Camelot, but he was kind of a scumbag.
But I don't know if I don't think as many things can be projected onto them, because I think Marilyn with Diana, probably James Dean as well, people can pretty much project whatever they want, which is why they're such great muses, isn't it? Whether it's a musical, whether it's the...
I suppose it is to do with them dying young then, because they haven't reached their full potential, so you can then project other things on. If they live longer,
you know more
about them.
Yeah, so they need to be that one-dimensionalness. That was less good.
So what we're saying is this will never happen to Betty White because we already know how epic she is. We know there's no space to project anymore.
I would love to see Betty White the musical, though.
We should do that.
Oh my God, yeah. I will just say there's a show on tour in the UK by an actor named Linus Karp, which is called Diana, the Untold and Untrue Story, which is genuine treason. It's an excellent, excellent show.
Do you just spend your days watching Diana-based content?
Linus is my good friend.
Okay.
But looks like Emma Corrin did in The Crown.
Really?
Like, it's a bit scary how much he looks like a young Diana.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so just pitching. I'm pitching you somebody else's show. But yeah, so in the same way, taking sort of the legend of Diana to the extreme, and I won't spoil it, but it's what if Diana had lived?
Wow.
I wonder how
Again with the eye contact, by the way, everybody.
I know.
It's really intense.
I know.
You're even looking at me and I can feel how intense it is.
I'm a trained professional. I know where my lens is.
I never do, and I always look cross-eyed. I've noticed.
You do.
Because I usually am. Something else. I was going to say something else really intelligent now, but I've forgotten it. Probably couldn't have been that good then, can it?
Good.
Watch Diana the Musical on Netflix.
Is it still on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They can't afford to take it down.
They can't afford to take it down.
It's the only way that production will make any money.
Oh, I see.
Because it get closed after 33 days.
Because, so it got closed because it didn't get good reviews though, did it?
No.
So
it's not a good show.
This might be the first
This is why it's
one of
mediocre.
these where I'm like, yeah, okay, everybody else does think this is mediocre.
No, it is
Or bad.
mediocre. No, it is. It's ridiculous. It's camp. It doesn't quite stick the landing because the whole time you're watching it, I will spoil some things.
Well, I mean, I think we know what happens.
Because the music. Well, no, you don't. No, you don't.
No?
'Cause You're getting towards the intermission, and you're going, "Are we doing AIDS?
Oh,
Is there a musical number about AIDS?"
wow.
And then at the end, you're getting towards the end, and you're like, "Are they going to kill her? Is she going to die? Or are we going to stop just before she dies? Where's this going to end?"
She must die, surely, otherwise. Okay, fine. You've sold it. We're going to watch. Do you know what? Netflix on Monday is going to be like, why are the viewing figures? Why have they gone through the roof?
No,
In the trade, we call that the mediocre gay effect.
Yeah, the bump. But what I love about mediocre things is it gives me so much hope in my life. Because if Diana the Musical can be made, all my dreams can come true.
Oh, that's...
You know what I mean?
Nice,
I can make something just a smidge better than Diana the Musical, which means I deserve funding.
We need to get that on a fridge magnet.
I hope one day I can make something a smidge better than Diana the Musical. What is mediocre about you?
I don't know if it's mediocre, it's just hurtful to people. I don't remember people's names.
Oh, David.
I feel seen.
All. Even my good friends, I don't remember their last name sometimes.
We've done a gig that I was emceeing where I forgot every single act's name, including all of the ones that I know personally.
Yep, you did.
My job often when David and I are out and about, I was going to say, doing a royal procession or something, but when we're...
Is to write down the names of people.
Or to do that classic thing that you see in Veep or whatever, or with Back to the Royal Family, just stand behind and just whisper the name, because I can just see him, the panic in his eyes of someone who you'll know really, really well.
When I'm emceeing, like if you do like a bit of audience work and you would and you're like, what's your name? She's stood at the back writing down their names so that when I come off, before I go back on, she can tell me what their name was again. We've even toyed with the idea of me having stickers, and I'll write people's names on them and then stick them on them and make a whole bit out of it. But I'm concerned that I can't spell.
Right. Like even you would fuck even that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I share this. It's quite traumatic, actually.
I had it
difficult.
2 nights ago. So I often work at the Pleasance Theatre as a technician. That's how I make money, because comedy's not doing it.
Because someone needs that.
Someone needs money. And part of it is I do the tech, but I also check people in when they come into the theater. So I'm on the door.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people that know me.
You're like...
But the problem is because I don't know their name, but I have to ask their name. And I go, so what's the name on the ticket? And they're like, you know me. And I'm like, yeah, so what's the name on the ticket? It's easier just in person, like at gigs, because I'll just say, it's nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's on them, because they've forgotten they've met me.
See,
even if they've never met me.
My problem is that I combine the problem of not being able to remember names with very often not being very good with faces either. Mm-hmm. So just entirely blank as to whether I've seen you before or not, which is very awkward.
I think it's also when you've been performing as well. So if you've been coming off from a gig or whatever, your head's not necessarily in a place where I can sit and process information. And I think it's that thing. This is going to sound really arrogant, but you've been still on stage, and if there's people in the audience who feel they know you, but you're one person, there's lots of them. I'm not explaining that very
No, I get what you mean. It does sound
very
arrogant, but
you're too good for them.
Yeah,
that's exactly what she's saying.
That's how people feel, is they've not made an impression, and I don't know how to tell them they're right.
Yeah, they haven't.
Yeah,
try harder.
Stand out more.
But I think it's a high bar for me to make an impression, because I will just forget people I should know. Like I've stayed at people's homes and then seen them somewhere else, and because they're out of context,
It's the context,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just like,
I think
just
a
don't
big
know
kindness we could all do for each other is just this.
Wear name badges.
Yes, or just there's an awful lot of things for everyone to remember these days. There's a lot going on in the world, and just always say your name. And don't take umbrage if someone has forgotten your name, because it's not that they don't. Well, sometimes it might be that they don't care, but it's not proof they don't care. It's just that they've got a busy brain.
another out though is just say, oh yeah, we follow each other on social media. It's an out for both of you to not really know who you are.
Yeah, awkward.
Because you'll be like, I recognize you. Like, yeah, we're mutuals on Twitter.
Yeah.
And people will be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I recognise your face.
That's how I
Okay,
recognise you.
tell the people where we can find you and what shows you've got going on and what you're doing and all of that.
Several things. So I have 2 shows on at the Vault Festival in London. So Generation Y, hilarious hour about the collective unprocessed trauma of the millennial generation. Full title. I'm dressed as Ash from Pokemon the whole time. You get a Pokemon card if you come. It's on at the Network Theater February 3rd and 4th. At 9:45 p.m. and then 9:15 p.m. because that's how the Vault Festival works.
Yeah.
That's a very fun hour. And then Promises of Grief, which is a very sad show that makes me cry on trains all the time.
Oh, God.
So come to make it worth the trauma that I've been through to make this show. And that is on the 7th and 8th of February, downstairs The Glitch.
So you've got a super busy first week of February.
Yeah, super busy. And then those 2 shows and Dead Named will go to Edinburgh Fringe.
Great. And where can we find you online?
So at Dian Cathal at all the things. I've really got that branding on lock.
And what about a website?
DianCathal.com.
Amazing. You've got it all down.
I mean, you got a name like mine, you got to lock it down.
Thank you so much for coming. That was really good. You can find me online on Instagram at Mr. David Ian, or you can check out my website at davidian.co.uk.
And you can find me on Instagram at KTS Dale. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Mediocre Gay, the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps other people find the show.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Mediocre Gay Pod, or share your mediocre secrets with us on mediocregaypod@gmail.com.